Good afternoon. Welcome to TNCRadio.live. This is the Truckers Network Radio Hour. Now here's your host, Shelley Johnson.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. Yes, this is the Truckers Network Radio Show on TNCRadio.live, where we offer the entertainment, sports, weather, traffic, news, and information that our commercial drivers want to hear. Stress is always a daily thing that our drivers face, and being the wife of a driver carries a different kind of stress all its own. Many drivers don't realize what their wives go through when their spouse is on the road, and we wanted to cover that. Today we have a driver's wife with us. Saundra Covington has written the book, The Truck Driver's Wife, Holding Down the Home Front, which chronicles the journey of a couple against the adversities of life with a husband being on the road. Welcome, Saundra. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you so much for inviting me.
So if you wouldn't mind, Saundra, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your husband? Is he a long-haul driver?
Yes, he is an over-the-road driver. When we got married, I can just start at the beginning. I didn't expect to marry a truck driver 16 years ago, but it wasn't in my plan, but God had other plans. But he was already a driver when we met, and he had already been a driver for over 10 years. And I met him, and he was out on the road at least 4 to 6 weeks at a time when we first got married. And when I came in, I was more like, okay, I'm okay with this now because this is what you've done. But, in the next 5 or 10 years, we need to reel it into like 11 Western or 5 to 7 days a week. And it's kind of worked out like that, but sometimes it didn't. The wheels aren't rolling, the money doesn't come in. Right. So you just have to adjust on that one. But I from Fresno, California.
Okay.
I moved to Los Angeles, Southern California when we were about 13 years old. So I can always say I'm a Southern Cal person by way of Fresno. When I met my truck driver, George, my husband, I was working for California State as a field payroll auditor, and had just got my first house, had no idea that, I was going to meet a truck driver who was passing through town. But I just figured at that time, oh, cool, it's a free meal when he passed through, just a friend. But look at 16 years later, we're still going strong, happily married.
Very cool. What were some of the biggest struggles you had? Obviously, the absence that's so hard, having somebody gone for so long.
That was the biggest. It was part of the biggest struggle, because when you get married, you think, wow, you want your husband, you want to show off your husband, and now I'm finally married, and I have a husband to show off, and it don't. In this industry, it does not work like that. We have to be flexible. It took some adjusting, because when he would come home, it would be like, oh, look, babe, the family's having this event, the church is having this event, event is going on, and you want to show him off. And he would go, but he would fall asleep while we were there.
Oh, yeah, he was tired. Yeah.
Right, because he's tired. So it took an adjustment on my end, and to realize, when he comes home, he needs that day or two to wind down before, or plan around it, or don't feel bad if you have to go if I go without him. He needs that rest. And it was times when he would, be like, look, I just can't do this,
Yeah.
And that took some time to adjust. And I think the biggest hit was when 6 weeks after we got married, I got pregnant, and it was a tubal pregnancy. And I was in the hospital, with my mom, and he was in the Everglades, no signal, had no idea what was going on.
Oh, wow.
And I'm laying there like, dude, thinking to myself, like, I got married to have a man next to me going through this, but he's not here. So my mom had to give him the word when he got signal the next morning. And of course, he was able to leave the truck at the truck stop and flew down the next day. But that was kind of the wake up, like, I'm strong. I can handle this. I have family support. I I don't fault him. It's a job. We married into this life, and we have to be flexible on this side, on the life side of it, with their life.
And it doesn't fit with every couple.
Right.
It's very challenging.
Right. And I don't recommend it for everyone. And if the type of spouse that, like has to have the guy next to you every night, or you want them home, or, I don't recommend. It'll always be a struggle there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It'll always be a struggle.
Did you talk every night on the phone? That always helps.
Yeah. Actually, we talk about, I'd say every 2 hours, we
cool.
are in some type of communication. And it kind of goes for both ways. One, I don't want him to worry. He has so much to worry about out there on the road, whether warehouse, weather, anything can happen out there so I don't want him to worry about me. And then me at home, I don't want him to worry about what's going on at the home. So at least about every 2 hours or so, it's either a text or, hey, are you just checking in, or a phone call or a little screenshot phone, just some type of communication to let each of us know that, hey, everything is fine here. I got this taken care of. And he's letting me know, hey, I'm safe, that I'm safe out there also.
Good. That's so important. Not all drivers do that, and they should. Because people worry, and what you don't know can get bigger and bigger and bigger in your head,
Yes. I can say 1 minute I'm talking to him, and the next minute I call back an hour later, and he's like, this cow just ran here, or I just had an accident or something. And it was like, dude, I just talked to you like a few minutes ago, but it just at that drop of at that instant, anything can happen.
Oh, yeah, it really can. And being home, you worry, especially when the weather's bad and various other things. So communication's absolutely essential. When you first got married, did he have a transition, getting used to having to account to a spouse and have to think, gee, I'm not by myself now, and I have to kind of adapt?
He did. He wasn't. Actually, it was easier on him than me. It was me that was like, okay, now I gotta, dude, okay, I gotta call this not check in, but oh, I got someone else that I need to incorporate in my daily activities. But on his end, it was more easy on him. He was more excited about the communication, the hey, how's the home life going on? Because he was a single bachelor for all those years. Mm-hmm. So he was I'd say it was more easier on his end than it was on my end.
Okay. Yeah, it takes adapting.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody knows what they're getting into. And certainly, like you said, if you want somebody there every night, that's not going to happen when you're involved with a driver.
Yes. Or if you got the events, my thing that I talk to a lot of women on social is that, don't, those little Hallmark calendars days, don't get mad if he's not home for your anniversary or this, and stuff. You can't let if you live your life by those calendars, Hallmark dates, you'll always be disappointed.
It's very true. They can't always be home on the holidays. And
exactly.
And it's tough for them too. It's lonely. It's not much fun to spend Thanksgiving by yourself or the truck stop. Yeah.
It's not. Shelly, a couple of times he's passed through. And I've met him on the side of the road with a plate, if he was like in California or in my mom's house or something, and he would be passing through, it'd be like, oh, George is going on the 15 heading to Vegas. I'm going to run and grab him a plate, drop it off at him at the truck stop and let him keep on going. I mean, you just kind of find ways to keep the fun there and to incorporate them if they're in the area.
Well, that's so sweet of you doing that, and at least he feels like, yeah, it's still a holiday and I get to see my wife, and there's a bit of normal there.
Right.
Yeah. Because, I think drivers are it's bittersweet. They like their freedom, but They also would kind of like to have the best of both worlds where they're home a lot more too,
Yes. Yeah, that's why during our marriage, he did try to come off the road to be home. And it didn't work out. He took like a security job because he wanted to be home more. We wanted to try a different route, and he was not happy.
Yeah.
He wasn't happy. So we had to have another like talk. And it's like, okay, if you're going to do it this time, let's try to at least do 11 Western. You're home 5-7 days a week. And that doesn't always work out like that.
Sure. That's true. It doesn't always. Well, it depends on what load's out there. Yeah.
True.
We have to go to break here. I've got more questions because being the wife of a truck driver is super challenging, and we want to hear more. We're talking with Saundra Covington. She's written the book, The Truck Driver's Wife, Holding Down the Home Front. You're listening to the Truckers Network Radio Show. I'm Shelley Johnson here with Tom Kelly. Stay tuned for more coming up.
This blog is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. Team driving with your spouse. Is it for you? Trucking's an exciting career with many opportunities. Although there are many benefits to being a truck driver, such as freedom on the open road and seeing new places, there's still negative sides like loneliness and boredom. Truck driving is also difficult for your marriage. Being away from your spouse for days or weeks at a time makes it challenging to have a happy and healthy marriage. Thankfully, truck drivers have the option to team drive with their spouse. Forming a husband and wife trucking team can be a great opportunity to spend time together and travel the United States while making good money. Now, like any other job, driving with your spouse has pros and cons. Stay with me to find out if team driving with your spouse is right for you. Now, the pros of team driving with your spouse. Faster delivery. Due to the FMCSA's hours of service regulations, truck drivers can only drive up to 11 hours a day. Any driving after 11 hours will result in a penalty and a bad safety score. Truckers on average will drive up to 55-60 miles an hour. After their 11-hour shift, that adds up to a little over 600 miles a day. When you drive with your spouse, you can drive more miles. While you're finishing your 11-hour shift, your spouse can be resting and getting ready for their shift. This allows drivers to complete more miles a day, which in return leads to a faster delivery. You won't feel lonely. Driving alone can lead to developing mental health issues later on in your trucking career. Studies show that depression and anxiety are some of the most common mental health issues in drivers today. Team driving with your spouse eliminates feeling lonely on the road. Having your spouse with you on the road gives you someone to talk to and enjoy your daily activities with. Make more money. A single truck driver makes less money per mile than one whose team drives. Why is that? Well, with two drivers, you're completing more miles each day, and therefore you reach your destination much quicker. Cons of team driving with your spouse. Difficulty getting along. They say that distance makes the heart grow fonder, and that's true. It can be difficult to get along with your spouse when you're in a small space for weeks at a time. You may find yourself wanting alone time to pursue your hobbies and interests. When you decide to team drive, you give up the possibility of any alone time in your truck. Lack of sleep. To make team driving work, your spouse will have to rest while you complete your shift of driving. Sleeping in a truck cab, especially if your spouse is noisy, can be difficult. As a truck driver, it's essential to have a good night's rest before hitting the road. Getting the right amount of sleep is not only good for your overall health, but it also makes you more alert and cautious when driving. Harder to find trucking insurance. If you decide that team driving's for you and your spouse, you might have trouble finding a commercial truck insurance company that'll write your insurance. When you team drive, your truck never stops. Therefore, the truck is at risk for higher exposure to accidents. Your truck's also more liable to having maintenance issues, which can result in getting violations. Conclusion? Driving with your spouse has many pros and cons. Our advice to you is to take a look at the pros and cons and determine if this is the right career path for you and your spouse. Trucking with your spouse can lead to many great memories. This blog was brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. You're listening to TNCRadio.live. Remember to tune into the Truckers Network Radio Show with Shelley Johnson weekdays at 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern.
This is the Truckers Network Radio Show on TNCRadio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson here with Tom Kelly. And we're talking with Saundra Covington, who's written The Truck Driver's Wife, Holding Down the Home Front, which is a book from a personal account because she's the wife of a driver. Tom, you said you had a question for Saundra.
Yeah, Saundra, I'm wondering, how do you balance when to tell him exceptionally bad news? So if I'm out there on the road, okay, and I think, I wonder what's going on with, and we'll just make this up, Johnny's baseball stuff. And Johnny's been injured. He broke his leg. Okay. Do you call him right away and say, Johnny broke his leg? Or do you kind of wait and figure out what kind of mood he's in? Or do you I only give him the really bad news at night? Or how do you balance that? Or is it just, you just got to figure it out each time you talk to him as to whether or not this is the right time?
I usually kind of listen to the tone. If he's having a rough day with a warehouse dispatch or somebody, I usually wait until the night when he's shut down and he's doing his rest period, and then that's when we'll have our daily catch up. Okay. Because if I've learned in the past, where in the beginning of our years, if I give it to him while he's driving, it's just, and he's already having, whether the warehouse is late, he sat there all day, the load was canceled, he's already have all that stuff going on in his mind.
Right.
And if I give it to him while he's going through that, it's just going to add in even more stress to that drive. So I've learned to give it, I don't let the day go by without addressing or letting you know what happened. So when he does his shutdown, that's when we'll go over the daily, okay, what happened to your day? What happened on your day? Cover it all, hopefully in an hour or two, because he needs to get to sleep. And then if something, I need him to make a decision or to help me out on this end, then we'll do it then, and then we'll move on. But I definitely try not to give anything like that while he's driving or going through what, he's going through on his daily.
Sure. I got to imagine that's got to be hard because sometimes there's bad news to give.
It is. And, every situation you kind of weigh it different. Now, if it's life-threatening or, if it's something where I have to tell him that something bad happened, like when my mom passed or something, I just had to let him know that, you definitely, hey, babe, you're about to do your 30-minute, can you pull over? I still try not to do it while you're driving.
Right.
Right. That I need to make sure that he's focused on that drive. If he can have the time where we're running early and he can pull over for do his 30 reset or whatever, 30 set at that time, then let's do it. I'll learn to do it then, because you don't want to. I've learned I don't want to add more to it, that stress at that moment.
Was that challenging to have to learn to adapt and kind of plan phone calls and all of that?
Yeah. Because when you're talking, when you're going through something, your immediate reaction is to, let me pick up and who can I call? Or let me pull up, I need to tell George about this. Or I need to tell him, this happened. And it is. And a couple of times I may have forgotten. And then the next day I'll go by like, oh crap, I forgot to tell him, this. But it comes with learning. Believe me, being in this industry, I did not learn overnight. It was a transition. Pardon me, Shelley?
It's a transition, no doubt.
It is. It is. You learn. You get to know your partner, what they like, what they dislike, how And a couple of times we have spoke. Well, when would you want to know this? Or if something like this happens, when do you want to know? Or do you want me to let you know? And a couple of times he's like, yeah, let me know. But then I let him know after he's been at the Walmart warehouse all day. And he's frustrated, and it's like, okay, no, even though he says he want to know, I'm going to wait until he shuts down,
Yeah. You can tell by the tone of voice.
Yeah.
I got to imagine that's not an easy way to do. I mean, it just seems like that would be difficult to know when to say what, because I can just see myself saying, why did you have to tell me that now? pretty much no matter what time it was.
Sure.
Don't you know I'm trying to go to sleep and now I'm going to be. Sometimes there's just no good time. You got to let him know so that something's happened.
Yep.
You're right, and you get to know your partner, and I try to wait until he's stopped and he's doing his reset, and then I'll hit him with it. But you're right, you do sometimes it is well, why am I just now hearing about this? And it's like, dude, well, 2 hours ago when we spoke, you were yelling at the dispatcher, you were mad at Walmart because you sat there all day. I've already kind of handled it on this end, so
Right.
I didn't want to add any more to that day at that moment.
So does this begin with everything's okay, but
Yeah.
I've handled it, but
Right. Or do you want the good news or the bad news?
Right. That's where it begins.
yeah.
Yeah.
The cast will only be on for 8 weeks.
Right. That's the good news.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Which
I've
cast
got the
who?
flood out of the kitchen.
Right, exactly.
And that's another thing. Women at home have to solve a lot of problems because let's face it, household issues happen. You can get a flood, an appliance can leak all over the place, and you can't pick up the phone every time.
And everything seems to happen when they leave.
Right,
It's like
that's
nothing
very
happens.
true. Right, that's very true.
Nothing happens, but we've learned, and I kind of counsel and help other women. Like we have our support here. We don't be afraid to have to call a repair person. Don't be ashamed that you have to, reach out to this repair line or something. Because if we can't fix it, and YouTube helps out a lot on a lot of avenues, but
Oh yeah.
if we can't fix it, we need to find a way to take care of it and let them know that, hey, we're handling it here on this end, so he doesn't have to worry or cut the load short. And now, he's home and you were counting on that extra money for those miles.
Sure. Absolutely. And when you think about it, the wife of a truck driver has to be pretty independent. Because you really are. You're kind of a loner for a long period of time when they're not there. And not all people are comfortable with that.
It does. You have to be able to, one, fill that space. Like when he's out on the road, you have to find, if you have a regular 8 to 5 job, you spend time with his girlfriend's family. But then when he comes home, the phone's off. Everyone knows, okay, George is home. It's about him. So I try to fill that time. I volunteer, get involved in other community activities. Because if you are sitting at home for those other 24 hours a day, and twiddling your thumbs, you'll go crazy. So you have to find something to occupy your time, to fill that space.
Find a support system of some sort. I was just thinking, when people are in the military, you have military wives and that sort of thing. Did you reach out and try to find other truck driver wives to maybe network?
Yeah, and the cool thing with, like 16 years ago when we got married, we didn't have this social media. And social media is a plus and sometimes it's a minus. We all know that. Mm-hmm. But the plus side about it, that there are a lot of truck driver wife support groups. We have the Facebook, the Instagram, the social media, where we all talk about, vent, of course we do
lots of venting that goes on.
Yeah. We vent and ask questions.
Sure. Yeah.
And
it
helps
have a
out
sounding
a lot.
board. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There's no spouses in there. We vent about, how did you handle this? Or it's Valentine's Day coming up and he's not home. Boo hoo. Okay. Well,
and he didn't send any flowers. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Or if he did, he didn't send the right kind.
Exactly. Or I got another truck stop postcard, It's like, okay.
Yeah, it's you want to be remembered. And just because somebody's on the road, it's not like you disappeared,
Right. And it's good. I mean, like I said, my George, I think I have a postcard from every little truck stop. Or if there's a gift that came out of a truck stop, I got it, and it's okay. You thought about me, that's nice, but I try to help people realize just because he wasn't there for Valentine's Day or whatever, or you didn't get the flowers that day, he's taking care of you in other avenues.
Yep.
Your bills are being paid. He's providing for the family. It's not easy for them to be away from the home too.
No, it's very true.
And we don't want them to feel bad that they're not here or they didn't do this because, like Tom said earlier, maybe they just certain dates that they just don't remember.
Right. Yeah, very true. We have to go to break here. I definitely want to ask some more questions because there are a ton of challenges that truck drivers' wives really do have, and I think it's appropriate to talk about that. We're talking to Saundra Covington. She wrote the book, The Truck Driver's Wife, Holding Down the Home Front. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show here on TNCRadio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson with Tom Kelly. Stay tuned right here on TNCRadio.live.
This blog is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. 5 awesome tips for finding safe overnight truck parking. Truck drivers face many challenges in their career, and finding safe overnight truck parking is one of those challenges. After the tragic murder of truck driver Jason Rivenberg, Jason's Law went into effect to help protect the thousands of truck drivers who need to find safe overnight parking. Although Jason's Law was put into place to help drivers, safe truck parking continues to be an issue for truck drivers across America. We've put together a list of tips that'll help you make the process of finding safe overnight parking easier for you. Plan your trip. Pre-planning your trip is something every truck driver should consider doing. Not only does it allow you to map out your overnight parking, but it allows you to map out where you can get fuel and food. Before you hit the road, take a look at your route. Avoid scheduling truck parking in high-crime cities or congested areas. Pro tip, download the app Truck Park. With over 200 secure locations, the Truck Park app allows drivers to schedule their overnight parking in advance, so drivers don't have to worry about driving around to find a parking spot. Not only is it a relief to have your parking spot booked, but it's also more productive with HOS. Also, if you're a member of the Truckers Network, drivers get instant access to a 15% off promo code to use when booking a parking spot with TruckSpot. You can sign up for just $5 a month. Park early. If you don't choose to reserve your parking spot through Truck Park, we suggest parking early. The majority of safe parking spots will fill up quickly before it gets dark. If you can, start driving early in the morning so that when it's time to quit driving for the day, you won't find yourself fighting for a parking space. Park in a well-lit area. Walmart parking lots are an extremely popular location for overnight parking. Why? Because they're well-lit areas. When planning your trip, it may be difficult to know whether they have well-lit parking available. If you find yourself in a situation where you don't feel safe, talk to your dispatcher. They might be able to help you find secure truck parking. Lock it up. It may seem like a no-brainer, but you'd be surprised as to how many truck drivers forget to lock up their truck and trailer for the night. So before you go to sleep for the night, make sure to lock everything. Insert a dash cam. Dash cams are a great way to provide evidence if your truck was in an accident or vandalized. It's always refreshing to know that you have an extra set of eyes on your truck. This blog was brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net.
Hey, this is the Road Hammers. You're listening to TNCRadio.live.
Welcome back to the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson with Tom Kelly, and we're talking with Saundra Covington, who's written The Truck Driver's Wife, Holding Down the Home Front. Saundra, you've really provided a lot of great insight here. I was wondering if, what would you say has been your biggest challenge with your husband being on the road? I imagine you've encountered more than one.
Our biggest, if I put it at the top 3, would be finances.
Okay.
In this industry, the finances, I won't say they're not guaranteed. The rewards are awesome, but the challenges are like can hit you hard. Like when about 2 years after we got married, we started our own trucking business, and we I don't recommend anyone getting into that business without having capital, without having a savings saved up, because we got into it with not having much capital saved up, and then once that tire blew, the engine ruptured, or this or that, now you have no money saved to do that, so you're pulling money from other avenues to take care of that. And after a while, you can only pull so much, to where we ended up having to close the business, file bankruptcy. We ended up losing our house, had to short sell our house, and had to take a step back and totally refocus. We downsized into an apartment for a year while he's still driving, but still trying to build our credit up and get that back up again. But finances are a big struggle with the business, because one, you have to have our savings. The wheels aren't rolling, the money's not coming in.
Right.
And two, if the loads aren't there and the jobs aren't there, it affects. Like with most people that are away, when you say military doctors, where the spouses or the partners are away for a long period of time, at least you know what the paycheck's going to look like this week.
Yep.
In our industry, we don't know what the check. I mean, I can bank on what the check is going to look like, but then he can call and say, "Oh, we missed that load," or a tire blowed, so now I'm down and I lost this load. So now it's okay. Now I got to rebudget and refocus this way. Yeah. And finances, the rewards are awesome, but it can really hit you if you're not, balanced, or have a budget or have a budget or a plan in this. And again, you can't always plan, because anything can happen.
You have to have that cushion. And when you think about it, finances are a challenge for any couple, especially when they're newly married, learning to merge expenses and savings and all of that. I think that's one of the biggest reasons their divorce is going into business and having the challenges that can come with trucking. That makes it even bigger. And what you went through, that had to have been tough. You're going to be angry. You can't talk to him. There can be blaming and all kinds of stuff. And you can't talk face to face to work some of that out and work off some of the steam, that comes with it.
Yeah, it was that stunt, that stretch that we went through when we lost the business, had to do the house. We had just relocated to Arizona, and we were in Arizona for like 2 years. And I left my job, 16-year-old state job in California, had my own house. It was being rented out at that time, but to move to another state with a man that I've only known for like 3 years, well, not a man, well, my husband at that time. And to find out that we're in a financial crunch. And it's just like, dang, I just gave up that support, and now I'm here. And you're right. I could have did the blame, like, you did this, or you brought me to this other state. There's no family, there's no support. But you have to realize, dig deep and realize, you know what? He didn't do this. We did this together. Right. So it's not just a you. It's a us. So how are we gonna step back and build ourselves out of it? And that's what we did. It took some years, but we are back up on top again.
Yep. It takes time.
It does take time.
What was your biggest strength in getting through all of that?
I want to say God, my spiritual strength. I really had to focus, and I read some books too, but definitely my spiritual, my God, he got me through that, because you can look at other relationships and be like, okay, let's do what they did. But no, there is no relationship like this industry relationship.
Right.
I can't compare my relationship or my marriage to my neighbor and talk to her about what I'm going through, because she won't understand what I'm going through, because her husband's home every night.
Exactly. Yep.
So you have to have, I had to have that spiritual foundation to get there. And my family, my family on my end was a big support also. But I had to have that, because if I would have blamed him at that time, or like, you know what, I'm going to leave you in Arizona and I'm going back home to mom and dad in California. That's not what I signed up for.
Right.
And that's not what he signed up for.
It's a lifetime commitment, no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, Shelley, that first time we had our first argument when we first got married, I had to realize, like, I can't send him home to his apartment. We have to stay here.
That's right. Yeah. Yep. What are some of the other challenges? I think that a lot of wives have maybe trust issues. With that kind of separation, depending on the person's personality, if there isn't total trust there, that can cause some problems.
And that's where what the communication comes in. I think that's where we do have that communication. I'm not saying there are every 2 hours that we have to speak with each other, but that's where I focus on our open communication, our arguments. If we're going to have an argument, that we're going to talk about it like right there. We're not going to let days go on. And this industry gets a bad rap for infidelity. And but I always tell everyone, the industry doesn't make a person cheat. You know, your job description does not make you adulterer. You know, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the person. And you want your driver or your spouse or partner to want to come home. You don't want to argue and bicker with them on the phone 24/7. And then it's like, well, you know what? I'm going to stay out an extra week because I don't want to go home and deal with that.
Right.
So,
and that does happen.
Yes, it does. It does. So I want you to feel welcome to come home. I want you to want to come home. So if we're going to have an argument, we're going to have an argument and we're going to dish it out right there. 24, 48 hours tops. After that, we've hashed it out. We're not going to wait 6 months later and bring up, oh, you remember that conversation we had 2 weeks ago? No. And I think that's where the trust and the communication comes from. Once you break that down, then you have those thoughts in the head. Oh, he's not answering my call. I've called him all week and he's not answering my call.
Sure.
He can't be stuck in the Everglades or up on the 80. I hate that 80 up there in Laramie, Wyoming, or stuck up there with no signal, for 2 days. So, then your mind does start wondering what's going on.
Absolutely. And Tom, we have a program that covers some of those issues of drivers being good husbands and fathers and all of that, and trucker's life. Don't we cover some of those?
Yeah, we absolutely do, and so we look at some of the struggles that drivers face every day, some of the temptations, some of the issues, and we talk about that every Monday night at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central, right here on TNCRadio.live. Tonight is about a driver who ended up going, he joined the military, ended up going overseas, and came back and had PTSD and didn't really realize what was happening to him. He was mad at everybody. He'd go to a bar and all of his friends would leave because he just didn't want to argue with him. And it took him a long time to figure out what was really bothering him there. And, PTSD, a good 25-30% of our drivers are vets, and PTSD is a real thing, and
absolutely,
that's the kind of thing that they need to know how to deal with. So we talk about all sorts of things like that.
And certainly, I know you folks have talked about trust issues and being a good husband and resisting the temptations on the road, which, like Saundra was saying, it's not the profession, it's the person, and obviously they have to be responsible for their own behavior.
Yeah.
You there, Tom?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I was talking to you on mute.
That's why I didn't hear you.
I'm agreeing. Can't you hear my head going up and down? Yes, no, absolutely. And just knowing the value of communication with your loved one, not something that all guys are good at. Not something all girls are good at either, but, it's easy to get locked in and forget that she has needs too, and needs to be kept up on what's going on. She really is truly curious as to. She's not trying to pry. Sometimes she just wants to know.
Mhm.
How's it going?
It's like that Mars and Venus book years ago, where we are two totally opposite, and we handle it both of us handle it differently.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Although I've been told that was also a good book for some guys to say, women are just impossible to understand. which is a cop out, but
Right.
So
Right. I think most people don't realize most of the drivers out there, I'd say about 60% of them or more, are independent.
Yeah.
So, they don't have the company's support, or, where if anything happens, if something happens out there, whether it's an accident, whatever, that's coming from the household. It's not a company, that is going to pick up the slack on that. It comes from us.
That's right. And those present some very phenomenal challenges. It is not an easy street to go into trucking and to have a long distance relationship and then have the financial struggles and obstacles and everything else. I mean, it's not for the faint of heart.
Right.
And I commend you for working through all of these challenges, because you had a transition of your own when you first got kind of thrown into this. It's like, wow, this is a whole new world.
Yeah.
People don't understand that from the outside. They're like, it's no big deal. You'll just drive a semi. It's a lot more involved than that.
It is so much more. I think I gained like 6 extra hats just being married to the driver, because now I'm on top of my regular job. I'm handling signing. Well, right now we're independent, so we have our own authority. So I'm signing contracts. I'm helping out with low boards. I'm, balancing this and making sure the paperwork is ready for that. So yeah, we take on a lot of extra hats here. That's why I was telling Tom earlier, I commend the ones with families that are doing a regular job, kids and paperwork. That it's a lot.
It really is. And laws keep changing and regulations in the trucking industry every other second. It just seems like that, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not necessarily an education you want to sit down and, I think I'm going to read this new law and memorize that. It's not exactly a good time.
Exactly. So I'm trying to show in the book to keep I try to do a balance, but we go through all of this, but then we still, come strong. It's like you have to find a certain balance, and on certain days we don't talk about business at all when he's home, but then on other days, okay, we're talking about this job, we're talking about his job, we're talking about my job, we're talking about the book. Okay, did we cover everything?
Sure. We have to play catch up. Absolutely. Well, I commend you on how you've been able to work through all of the hurdles and have a really healthy relationship. That's heroic. And I would say that you're very innovative, and congratulations on that. And it shows, I think you're probably stronger for all of it too.
Thank you. Thank you. Because I couldn't handle some of this stuff. I wouldn't thought years ago when he called me and said he had an accident, and now I'm like, oh, what am I supposed to do? It takes a moment to digress and come back and think, okay, now I need to go into this mode. He's healthy, he's safe, he's okay. Now I need to do this.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. All of that is so very challenging, and it's amazing the strength you find within yourself when you're dealing with those kind of situations. We have to go to break here. We're talking with Saundra Covington. She's the author of The Truck Driver's Wife, Holding Down the Home Front. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show here on TNCRadio.live. I'm Shelby Johnson with Tom Kelly. Stay tuned for more coming up.
This blog is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. 5 awesome tips for finding safe overnight truck parking. Truck drivers face many challenges in their career, and finding safe overnight truck parking is one of those challenges. After the tragic murder of truck driver Jason Rivenberg, Jason's Law went into effect to help protect the thousands of truck drivers who need to find safe overnight parking. Although Jason's Law was put into place to help drivers, safe truck parking continues to be an issue for truck drivers across America. We've put together a list of tips that'll help you make the process of finding safe overnight parking easier for you. Plan your trip. Pre-planning your trip is something every truck driver should consider doing. Not only does it allow you to map out your overnight parking, but it allows you to map out where you can get fuel and food. Before you hit the road, take a look at your route. Avoid scheduling truck parking in high-crime cities or congested areas. Pro tip: download the app Truck Park. With over 200 secure locations, the Truck Park app allows drivers to schedule their overnight parking in advance, so drivers don't have to worry about driving around to find a parking spot. Not only is it a relief to have your parking spot booked, but it's also more productive with HOS. Also, if you're a member of the Truckers Network, drivers get instant access to a 15% off promo code to use when booking a parking spot with TruckSpot. You can sign up for just $5 a month. Park early. If you don't choose to reserve your parking spot through Truck Park, we suggest parking early. The majority of safe parking spots will fill up quickly before it gets dark. If you can, start driving early in the morning so that when it's time to quit driving for the day, you won't find yourself fighting for a parking space. Park in a well-lit area. Walmart parking lots are an extremely popular location for overnight parking. Why? Because they're well-lit areas. When planning your trip, it may be difficult to know whether they have well-lit parking available. If you find yourself in a situation where you don't feel safe, talk to your dispatcher. They might be able to help you find secure truck parking. Lock it up. It may seem like a no-brainer, but you'd be surprised as to how many truck drivers forget to lock up their truck and trailer for the night. So before you go to sleep for the night, make sure to lock everything. Insert a dash cam. Dash cams are a great way to provide evidence if your truck was in an accident or vandalized. It's always refreshing to know that you have an extra set of eyes on your truck. This blog was brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. TNCRadio.live, your commercial driver navigation station.
This is the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson with Tom Kelly, and we're talking with Saundra Covington, who's written The Truck Driver's Wife, Holding Down the Home Front. I love all this insight you've had, Saundra, and the strength that you've been able to muster throughout the years with your husband being on the road. You guys make a great team. You said you also want to bring awareness that there's a family behind all the drivers out there. I do think that the public tends to forget that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm the purpose behind the book was to address that most of the people, when they see the drivers out there, you either want them to move out the way or they're in your way, they're blocking, they're putting more water if it's raining on your truck or your car. And I just wanted to bring awareness that there is a family behind that driver. Mm-hmm. And that most of the drivers out there are independent drivers. Most of them, people don't realize that they are their own owner operator. This is their business. And if something happens that affects the family that's behind the scenes, just trying to taking care of the home while they're out there on the road. And that's a part of that industry that I felt that was forgotten. That you just think there's a guy behind the road that has that stereotype, as we talked about earlier, that has a spouse, a girlfriend, family in every truck stop. But right. that's not, most of them out there, 99% of them out there, or I might get wrong by saying not 100% of them out there. They're out there to make money for their family, to get to their loads safely, and to get home safely to their family. That's all they care about out there, and that's what their main priority is out there. And I wanted to bring the awareness that there is that family behind there. I'm going to get in touch with some companies and talk at some of their recruiting sessions with their new hires, new drivers, to let them know what their spouses to expect now that they're getting into this industry.
Bravo to you for that. Because I do think that a lot of people get involved in the industry and they have no idea, and they might not be told this by maybe the companies that are training them, because the companies want students and they want recruits and everything. But they need to be straight up with people.
Yes. Yeah, there's glory behind it, and there's happiness behind it, but I want you to go into it knowing what to expect. So when it does come up, it was like, well, you never told me, and then they leave the relationship. It's like, no, you can work through it. There is a way to work through it. There is a way to manage, to adjust. And why not hear it from those of us that's been married in this industry for 10, 15, 16, 20 years plus.
Yes, because it does take intestinal fortitude as well as emotional fortitude to be a spouse. It's a heck of a transition, and it's a partnership that people don't necessarily think about when they first jump into it. And I think creating the awareness, too, for the public that drivers have families, too. I think all people see are the big rig. They don't even see the person driving that big rig.
Right.
You know? And I think that drivers get a bad rap. Unlike decades ago when it used to be a really cool thing. And I would love to see that turned around, because drivers work probably harder than most any other industry. The average person would not be able to do what a driver does.
Yes. Yeah, there's a lot more women nowadays, Shelley, also getting into it too than previously.
I believe it's up to 30% now. It's really, really growing. Is it 30% or is it 20%? Tom, do you know the stat? I think I'm off. I know that 30% of drivers are veterans. Maybe it's 10%. Shelley's correcting herself as we go along. I always talk out loud. What the heck? But yes, it's a wonderful profession. But it takes some definite stamina and an adjustment for everybody involved. We've got about 3 minutes left, Saundra, and I want people to know where they can find your book, where they can purchase it, and if they want to reach out to you.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, you can reach out. Well, the book is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and Google Play. The Facebook page is on the same title as the book, The Truck Driver's Wives. Or you can reach out to me through Saundra Covington. You can find me on Instagram, social media, Facebook. And I'm always available to answer any questions or help anyone get through, any spouse or wife get through any challenges that they may have, or just someone to talk to. Because sometimes we just need somebody to talk to that understands the industry. Like I said, I can't go talk to my neighbor about it because my neighbor isn't married to a driver.
Exactly. Yeah, they kind of look at you like, huh? Okay.
Right. Just leaving, Yeah.
Yeah, you tend to get kind of the look like you're a space alien or something. It's like, no, this is really happening.
Right.
What's your advice? Well, I don't know. I've never been there. And that's not what you want to hear. You need to have the support system. And it's wonderful that you're out there providing that. And you can advise people on some of the social media, too, where they can seek a support group.
Yes. No.
Well, I love what you're doing. Your book, The Truck Driver's Wife, Holding Down the Home Front. We're going to be featuring that also on our website, correct, Tom? Where exactly do people look?
Just click on the shopping basket, and it'll take you to our store, and you can find the book right there. Order it from Amazon.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Well, I've appreciated talking with you, Saundra. You've had some terrific insight. Do you have a final word to tell our listeners about what it's like to be a truck driver's wife?
My final word, I would say, is flexibility, communication. If you have those two in this relationship, you are geared for success.
Those are two really powerful words. And I think that if people practice that, that's definitely a recipe for success. Thank you, Saundra. We've been talking with Saundra Covington. She's the author of The Truck Driver's Wife, Holding Down the Home Front. And you've been listening to the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.live. Thank you for listening to another great interview on TNCRadio.live and the Truckers Network radio show. All of the material you hear on TNCRadio.live on our website, our broadcasts, or our podcasts are copyrighted. There can be no distribution without the express consent of TNCRadio.live and its partners. For inquiries, write us at info@tncradio.live.